Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast for today, the 4th of April. Happy Easter everyone, hope you're staying safe. I am joined by Labour supporter Zach Chambers for tonight's.
Hello.
And that's having the issues with the old Wi-Fi there, sadly. But we're up running now for this episode of the Globetrotter Newscast this week for the 4th of April. And we've got so much to talk about tonight. This is crazy, Zach. I want to start, though, before we chat about the UK's vaccine passport plan, I just want to chat about France because sadly on yesterday they went into lockdown. And Zach, in France, things not looking great. And Emmanuel Macron certainly didn't look very pleased with himself when he addressed the nation on Thursday.
Yeah, hi Charlie. He certainly didn't look too pleased with himself for yesterday, the other day, Charlie. Another lockdown for France. They had the same amount of lockdowns as us now. This is their third one. There's been a massive spike all across Europe. France, Germany, grunting pretty much the worst of it. France so bad that they're going into a third lockdown with the kids after school again, pretty much all a curfew again as well, and pretty much all the shops and non-essential businesses that have had to be shut, Charlie. So they've unfortunately, unlike us, has had the brunt of a third an uptick in cases, which is, I have to say, can be partially blamed, if I may say so, on two things, I think, Charlie. One is the spread of the B117 variant, which is obviously our UK variant, should we say, the Kent variant, if you want to call it in more specific terms. And two, I would also say as well, Charlie, that their vaccine rollout hasn't gone as well at their end. And the fact is that because they've not vaccinated enough people, they've had an uptick in cases. So unlike us, where we're actually tumbling down the cases and recording pretty much record low deaths, they are going up. The cases in the hospitals are packing up again, I'm afraid, Charlie. So there's no choice but a third lockdown in France as well. It's disaster for France. You have to say,
what
Charlie,
is going on with the EU's vaccine rollouts? Zach, France's ICUs are looking bad.
Yeah, it's looking. Yeah, it's pretty much looking terrible, Charlie. That's the thing, though. As I said before, Charlie, the vaccine rollout is going terribly. It's not going down very well. It's still very slow. There's still battles and old fights to haggle with. I know WrestleMania is not until next week, but goodness me, it always feels
with AstraZeneca, like certainly, without a doubt.
I know, free promotion there, Charlie. I'm telling you, I know you're not a WWE watcher, nor I just know that WrestleMania is next week, but there we go. And I don't even watch it anyway. But yeah, that's what it's probably feel like to me, Charlie. Just look at all of this. It's a bit feisty, and it's a result of the EU's actions. You can partly blame on that. That's why there's a third wave in France. Has it affected us yet? No. Could it? Maybe. Well, let's see. The cases are coming down our end compared to going up their end. So it could be a delay, but we're going the right direction where we are. And there's certainly, Charlie, it's not going well the other end in France or Germany.
No. France, with their lockdown, I believe the measures that were in Paris are now being extended nationwide. And you can only travel, I think, up to like a 5-kilometer radius out of your house to do like exercise. And you have to have a document again to say where you're going. And you have to fill it out. Otherwise, you could get fined. It's feels like the march all over again from last year, doesn't it?
It
with the
does.
same risk level restrictions.
Do you know what, Charlie? I was just thinking that as well. It feels like exactly the same situation as last year, but like a year on for France. It's almost as yeah, we did it last year at the start of March and April. Oh yeah, let's just what does coronavirus think? Oh yes, let's just happen it again in April in France. Why don't you? So I'm just looking at what they've done in France, Charlie. What Macron has done in France. So all schools, non-essential shops shut for 4 weeks. Curfew from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that's I think an 11-hour curfew. Just reading as well.
That's very draconian curfew.
Yeah, very draconian. The number of seriously ill COVID patients increased by 145, the biggest jump according to the BBC.
That's in intensive care as well.
Month. Yeah, intensive care. But the other day I think they recorded 46,677 new cases, which is my mighty. That's a huge amount, Charlie. 304 deaths. Obviously, as we know. I don't know if it applies to others, Charlie, but when a COVID cases increase, there's a lag in the deaths. And deaths to jump up soon.
And this variant, Zach, is much more transmissible. It's up to 50 to 70% more transmissible, isn't it?
Yeah, and the problem with France as well, not only have they got the case of the B117 variant in Kent, but you also have the South African and Brazilian variants that have struck there as well, which is a major issue, Charlie. Because as you probably know, France is not on the red list in the UK. And even though they're going to lockdown there, Charlie, the UK government have not actually taken the decision to put it on the red list. I know this week that the UK did put 4 countries onto the red list and therefore requiring hotel quarantine. France wasn't one of them, which you have to say is a bit of surprise and a bit, well, why are you not doing this? Well, I think the answer summed up really when Boris Johnson went to the liaison committee, not the Wednesday we just had, but the Wednesday before that, just before the recess of Parliament, and he was asked about this, and he said on the fact on not putting France on the red list that we've got all our goods coming into the countries, and what we're thinking, well. Yeah, I know goods import. We've got to get our goods here, but goodness me, what about all the people that are still coming in, bringing variants potentially? Now, I noticed that Grant Shapps has recently introduced a scheme where if you're coming into if people coming in from France, lorry drivers, for example, are coming in for extended stay, they have to get tested. Before they come into the UK, and then 48 hours after as well. I mean, that's good, but that's not good if you're thinking about people actually traveling by plane here, Charlie, and coming from France into the UK. Then although it's a quarantine, you've got to quarantine your home. It's not a hotel quarantine. It's not a strict quarantine.
No, it isn't.
Like the one as well. So that is a major issue, Charlie. And I simply don't understand why that wasn't taken. That decision wasn't taken. I don't get it. I think the government, if you think about it, the UK government are risking a little bit with this because at the same time, there's goods that are priority. Yes, I agree that should be a priority, but also as well, Charlie. I'm thinking about this as well. You also got people coming in with potential variants and then coming to UK with variants.
And the migrants as well.
Yeah. Well, we don't know whether some of them might come in with COVID, some of them don't. But yeah, it's not. Sometimes it feels like an open border for no reason, even though there's rules at the border. It just feels like an open border for people flying into the country, not only just crossing the dinghy boats as well, but coming into the UK by plane, and it's risky, and I don't know. It feels like it's tilted one direction rather than the other in the wrong way for me.
This is ludicrous, Zach. I don't understand why they haven't put France on the red list. I think they've got to do this. I mean, I just think I think as well, it's clear that we've got a press conference tomorrow at 5:00 from Boris Johnson,
Yes.
Prime Minister, and there's going to be some changes. I'm going to come on to foreign holidays in a bit, but we're going to start, Zach, now by talking about the big news of the weekend and the week, and that is COVID passports. Vaccine passports are due to be trialled. What do you make of this this motion that the government could bring across? What do you make of the idea of having vaccine passports?
Well, it's okay. This is going to be a bit complicated, Charlie. So just explain, and I'm just trying to understand what this is as well. So, the idea. Let's just go through the basics of what a COVID passport might be. So it's basically, if I understand it correctly, as I currently understand, it's going to be a verification sort of way of getting into, say, cinemas, big stadiums, indoor events, clubs, all that sort of thing. It verifies that you have had the vaccine. You've had the vaccine. Here's my proof. I'm going to do it on a QR code or a paper via a COVID test, and then I can let myself in. So that's how I understand it. It might be done on the NHS app, or it could be done on the Test and Trace app. I don't know, Charlie. There's all sorts of rumors going around at the moment, and this looks like clearly looks like it's going to be given the go ahead by the cabinet, because there is a meeting of the cabinet tomorrow, as I believe, Charlie. The one of the sub cabinets, basically the COVID operations committee. So they're going to finalise all this as well, from what I understand. And Michael Gove basically gave a hint today in the Sunday Telegraph, where he said the UK could take inspiration from a vaccine passport scheme using Israel, where the Israel approach is basically a smartphone app. So what he could say is that he could integrate the NHS app into it, and also use, potentially, if you don't have an app, you can't use an app for whatever reason, a paper certificate. It's basically a way to get allow big events in as I said, in cinemas, in clubs, in indoor in sort of thing, stadiums as well. That's the way to safely do big gatherings. Now, Charlie, I have to say as well, it's interesting. There's also going to be as well, I believe, the separate COVID passport for foreign holidays. I know we just touched on France as well, where you can, where you can basically, you have to verify a passport before you can enter another country to go in for a holiday. Now, my feelings on this, Charlie, is I'm a bit mixed, you see. I think whilst I understand the purpose of showing you needing the passport to say prove you've had the vaccine and therefore you're not really vulnerable to COVID that much, I also think as well timing is another matter, Charlie. If you introduce it, say May, in the middle of May, just before all social contact is lifted, and the youngest have not got their vaccine yet, then I think it's a little bit of a problem. And I say, well, it's a matter of timing. If they introduce it, say, 3-4 weeks now fully, which I don't think they will, but if they did, that's potentially a problem, because that means young people will not have access, will just be denied access unless they take COVID tests, for example, as a use of passport. Now, I have to say, Charlie, but I have to say, I'm in favour of the passport for foreign holidays. So let me just say that for certain. Now, as I understand this from what I'm reading from the reaction, this has not got a very good reaction from Conservative backbenchers.
No, Tory backbench, 76 MPs have rebelled.
Yes, and not only that, Charlie, not only Tory backbenchers, but it appears the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, and a lot of Lib Dems and a lot of Labour MPs are also against COVID passports domestically as well. I think Keir Starmer did an interview in the Telegraph where he called it un-British.
Yes, I heard about that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes, that's very interesting, Charlie, because obviously this may have to go to a vote before Parliament. Now, this is very interesting. Depending on what's announced, Charlie, and presuming that there's going to be a big Tory rebellion, it would mean that the Conservative Party would need help from the Labour Party. Now, this will be interesting. If the way Keir Starmer's steering this is that he could end up voting against this because he says, I'm British, and there's a big backbench rebellion as well from the likes of the left wing of the Labour Party, such as Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, something you would not interestingly see. This is an interesting collaboration of, you say, the more lockdown skeptics and those pro-lockdowns but want civil liberties back. So for the Lib Dems, for example, Ed Davey was pro-lockdown, for example, and he was necessary, and he thought it was necessary to lock down when needed to be. But but their party voted against the Coronavirus Act, and their party also comes out against vaccine passports as well. So considering this, Charlie, if there's a broad coalition that decides, no, we're not going to abstain, we're going to vote against, and there's a Tory backbench where there's lots of Tory MPs that are going to vote against, then the government could potentially be defeated on this, Charlie. And that will be a huge big moment for the government where they get defeated on something by their own backbenchers and even the opposition. Now, is there support about this in the country? I don't know. It depends on how you certify the question. You talk about certificates, passports. I mean, people seem to be in favour of a passport, but let's just say, get all the details out. How would the public react then? I mean, there's some rumours going around that, your information could be stored in a centralised location somewhere, which means you could be tracked with it. Now, I mean, think about it. This is a very interesting situation because it just takes an advantage in some ways, to the anti-vaxxers such as Piers Corbyn and, the anti-vax morons who are going to be an uprise about this and going to prove a point. And I don't want them to prove a point because they're a bunch of morons anyway. But, there's people that don't want to be tracked and they're not anti-vaxxers. So this is going to be very difficult to implement, I think, Charlie. I'm a bit conflicted. I mean, I don't mind it personally, as long as I get the timing right of this. It's just the timing of when, not if for me. I think that's the problem that I'm having with the certificates at the moment. But we're going to find out tomorrow anyway, Charlie, I believe, from the Prime Minister. Going to do a news conference at 5:00 tomorrow.
Yeah, from that new Downing Street briefing room as well, Zach, I believe, where he's going to be.
Yes, we had that debut last Monday. Yeah.
Looked quite cool, actually. But I just want to turn your attention to a tweet that was sent by the Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, was the Secretary for Culture, Media, Sport, Digital Technologies. He said, he's tweeted, we have revealed the initial pilot events which will help pave the way for larger audiences at sport, theatre and gigs this summer. This work is science-led, the government's science-led events research programme will work with organisers to undertake studies to get fans and audiences back safely. Dates for some of the events have been issued here. So on the 16th of April, we've got Hot Water Comedy Club Liverpool. There's going to be a pilot event there. On the 18th of April, we have the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. From the 17th of April to the 3rd of May, the World Championship Snooker will take place at the Crucible with about 1,000 fans, I believe, indoors. 23rd to 25th of April, we got Luna Outdoor Cinema Wickford. This would be a pilot event. 25th of April, Carabao Cup final. That will be at Wembley. 29th of April, business event at Liverpool. 30th of April, Circus Nightclub Liverpool, and the FA Cup final on the 15th of May. Zach, what do you make of these pilot events with the new technology?
Yeah, so I'm just reading along the lines of that, Charlie. I get the understanding. It's not just let's just trial some people indoors. It's there. I think it suggests to me, Charlie, that they're going to pilot these COVID passports there, which will be very interesting. I'm very interested to see how this works. Probably, as I said, we get more details from the government. We're going to get something from the government, tomorrow. That's very, going to be very interesting to see how this all works. Now, I'm obviously very skeptical how this is all going to work, as I said, Charlie, but we'll have to see tomorrow, because I bet the reaction is not going to be very great tomorrow. That's my feeling of how this is going to be announced. I don't think people are going to be happy. There's going to be a lot of angry voices. That's my feeling, just from reading what people are reading, what people are saying.
It's going to be an interesting debate. I wish when Parliament comes back there'll be a debate on this, because I think this is an issue that's got to be debated.
Yeah, they'll have to be, because there's a lot of controversy around this, and I'm very interested. In some ways, I'm thinking of the vaccine passport. I think in some ways, with the clubs and stuff like that, Charlie, it's kind of like a push to get young people vaccinated, because there'll probably be a lot of skepticism on the young people saying, well, I'm healthy, I'm fine, I don't want to get it, I don't need it, and all that blah blah blah. And then they're going to probably pilot this on clubs, so that you're going to have to end up being if you want to get in, you're going to have to take something and show something, proof. So this is going to steer the young people in some direction where they're going to have to interesting.
This system's going to be very novel and certainly very wacky if it was to ever pass the House of Commons. So please comment down below, guys. I'm live on the Globetrotter Newscast on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. What do you think about COVID passports? What do you think about them? Please comment down below. I'd love to hear your opinions on that. Moving on now, Zach, to foreign travel. Now, foreign holidays are going to be also announced tomorrow. Apparently, there's a traffic light system that's going to be announced for when you fly into the UK. Do you have to quarantine? Or could you explain to listeners exactly how this new traffic light system is going to work for foreign holidays?
Yeah, so as I understand it, from what I have been reading, Charlie, is that there will obviously, as I said, probably be a COVID passport for overseas. And there will probably, if you want to go on a summer holiday, there would be a traffic light system. Now, as far as I understand the details, there'll be different countries will be in different traffic light, basic different color lights. There'll be 3 colors. Basic traffic light will be green, amber, red. The typical traffic light that you see on the roads every day and that sort of thing. A bit like that. So my understanding of how this will work at the moment is obviously this is not confirmed. This is what I'm reading. Is that green would be if you're going on holiday in a green country, it would mean that you could, with your passport, you could go and have a holiday there. And when you come back, you will not have to quarantine because their case rate will probably be low and that country will probably be safe. Amber, as far as I'm aware, is that you can go on holiday there, but if you have to take a test, something like that, and you'll probably have to quarantine for a certain number of days as well at your home. And I believe red is, in a red situation is where there'll be hotel quarantine resolved. I think that's how it's going to work. I will double check on that because on that, but that's how I understand.
Yeah, Zach, you're right. That's that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully I'm right on that. But yeah, that will be interesting. Yeah. But I have to say, Charlie, it'll probably be inevitable that vaccine passport for overseas will become life because there'll be countries that will require it, and they will require it just to keep their residents safe. So it only makes sense for us to put overseas passports, in our country as well.
It's going to be interesting because I think this this new traffic light system is going to determine about foreign holidays. If it's a red list country, you have to quarantine. If it's green, you don't. This is a big thing, and Boris is going to say more about this tomorrow in the press conference. I mean, Chris Whitty saying early in the week that there's going to be no more lockdowns. I'm pretty confident now that a fourth lockdown is. I don't think that's going to happen now. The vaccine rollouts up in this country. I think. I mean, Zach, do you agree with his comments? Do you think that will help foreign holidays as well?
I mean, Chris Whitty has said this week, Charlie, that the government are moving to now the stage where we're going to live with COVID. Not, they're saying because of the vaccines that COVID is going to be the effects of COVID, if you ever get it, will be like flu, so it won't be even that bad. I mean, we're living with flu at the moment, Charlie. I mean, so we're getting to that stage where COVID is going to be like flu, and we can treat people like it's flu. So that means, we can just live with it. And you realize it's a little bit of a danger, but we shouldn't be scared. And he gets the point. He has a point, Chris Whitty. I was a bit skeptical of living, if he said this to me if he said this to me 6 months, 8 months ago, I would have killed the scientist, quite frankly. I'm not joking. I'm not really going to kill the scientist. I would have, really been annoyed, and I thought would have been thought they'd been deluded. But I think we're at that stage now where it probably, because of the vaccines and all our good work, it we're probably okay to now start living with it. There's not gonna. I can't see it being realistic that if there's someone gets COVID or a different variant pops out, we're just suddenly going to start shutting down the country again. It's going to practically be impossible for that now onwards, Charlie.
Yeah.
I can't even see the realism for that now. So I can't.
Yeah, I think foreign holidays I think foreign holidays would, in my opinion, if they use this traffic light system, it should be fine. I think as well, Zach, on Chris Whitty's point, I think, with the vaccines going so well, 31.5 million now we've done. I know doses because we've got a bit of a supply issue, but second doses is vital, isn't it, for the most vulnerable to get their second dose, isn't it?
Yeah. And on the vaccine front, Charlie, by the way, there are now more second doses being put into arms than there are first. So it just shows you that many of the people have now been vaccinated, and that because of the time scale between their first dose and the time that now they need to get their second dose, we're now seeing to the stage where we're seeing enough people being vaccinated, and because of the time scale, the difference, we're now seeing more people being vaccinated, getting their second dose, actually, should I say. So that's probably going to be how it is from going onwards. And obviously, because we've got slightly less of a supply now for April, although we do have Moderna on its way, there is going to probably be a lot of second doses and a lot less first doses now, Charlie. So that's how it's going to be. That's probably how that will probably be doing it. That's how it is. Lots of people are going to get their second doses. I believe the people who are said to would take the second dose compared when they took the first dose are 99% of so far, Charlie, which is brilliant, excellent news. Let's keep up the good work on that front.
Yeah, that's good. Let's keep the vaccines up. We're doing well. I know that the number of second doses is high. I know people are a bit concerned, but it's vital that we give the most vulnerable priority groups 1 to 4 that first dose to give them extra protection. Guys, last weekend when we were live on air, the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol was postponed because of the bad weather. However, though, it was on Monday. And we have the results now of the Food City Dirt Race. And Zach, Joey.
Yeah. Let me get it up, actually. I'm going to try and find it. Oh, I can't get. Do you know what? I've managed to not get it up on my screen here. So let me. Here we go. Let me type this in.
The NASCAR. I have the NASCAR standings here. I'll just go over them quickly. Okay. Logano first for Ford, Team Penske. Stenhouse Jr. was second. Denny Hamlin third for Toyota. Daniel Suarez fourth in the Chevrolet 99. And I think Ryan Newman fifth for I think Team Penske Ford as well.
Yeah. So that was the result of that. I have to say, Charlie, I watched it. I watched the bits and pieces of it. I say, and you know what? It's really good, Charlie. Watching it, it was really good. I have to say, very entertaining. I mean, dirt racing is just generally very entertaining. Overall, you know, Jerry led the last 61 laps of the race. You know, and as you said, Charlie, you know, we had a little bit of rain. There was a bit of a rain delay on Sunday. I mean, it would have been nice for me, you know, to see the heat races personally, because that's probably where all the excitement would have come in. Because, you know, heat races allow you know, is a bit of a mad dash for the drivers to qualify. But yeah, it was a shame we didn't see that because of the rain. But we did actually get to see the overall race. And you just said Logano won that race as well, and I have to say, well deserved as well. So let me look at the standings at the moment, because that means he's going to the playoffs as well. So he's actually, Denny Hamlin is now leading the standings by, I believe, you know, let's look. Oh my goodness me! So he's leading by 159 points from Jerry Logano, who's obviously now in the playoffs, alongside Truex, Blaney, Christopher Bell, and Michael McDowell. Sorry.
Yeah.
Top 16 obviously gets locked in. So
the chase.
So 16th, the 16th and final one who would be locked, who would if the playoffs was decided today, would be Alex Bowman. Just look at it. Still a lot to play for, Charlie. There's still a lot of
lot of drivers went off. I believe Christopher Bell and Carl Larson both came together, I think, during the race as well. It was a lot of sort of, if you got it wrong, you ended up having massive pile-ups, and there was a lot of cautions. As well.
It's a lot more difficult, Charlie, to avoid a crash when you are on a dirt track, because the brake, you know, you're not going as fast, there's less grip, and your car will slow. Your braking distance will be longer. So, and the stopping distance will be much longer as well. So you're very more likely to get involved in a crash, and you're very less likely to slow the car down. And we had a few examples of that with like Larson as well, and Christopher Bell crashing. So yeah, I have to say though, Charlie, it was definitely a fun race to watch.
It was really good. I watched some highlights of it, and I tell you what, it was great to see the NASCAR action back on dirt for the first time in over 50 years. It was quite amazing. The next NASCAR race wasn't actually this weekend. We had a break. Next week, we're at Martinsville, I believe.
Yes,
for the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500.
Yeah, that is correct. It'll be under the lights for the first time. Martinsville, I believe that this race will be under the lights, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. Actually,
it
will be on this
narrow track. This one's Zach, isn't it,
Charlie? Yeah,
a Saturday race.
It's another short track. It's a Saturday race, so yeah, it'll be at 12:30 in the morning UK time, which obviously I won't be getting up for. I'll probably be in bed by then. Yes, there's three races actually. There's the Wheelie Modified Tour, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup race on the Saturday night. Yes, this is a narrow, short track, much slower than Bristol. This one's not on dirt, just in case, but it's slow. It's narrow. But it allows, considering sort of we get 40 cars on track or so, it's going to mean that there's going to be some stacking up sometimes. There's opportunities, and those last laps could be if there's a caution and an overtime. Those last laps are going to be wild. Let me just say that. That battle will be big. So yeah. Martinsville's a slow track. It's a bendy track. Got to counter in a lot of braking in this track rather than just going at high speed. So yeah, it will be a test for the drivers to keep position, keep focused on the track, and try and overtake really.
Yeah, and Zach, Martin Truex Jr. is actually the reigning winner of this event as well. So he needs a good weekend because he's had a couple of difficult ones, hasn't he? He's struggled at I think Bristol, and he's not had he needs to certainly get himself together if he's going to do well.
Yeah, he won the race last year. He does need to improve. I think he needs to revitalize himself. Now, yeah. So I think hopefully, if with a track that he won out last year, he could bring back his form a little bit.
I mean, I think as well, Zach, another driver that goes quite well round this track. I mean, you've got like Brad Keselowski have won here 2019. You've got several drivers. A driver that really needs to improve because I haven't seen much of him this season running at the top of the order. He's Chase Elliott in the Hendrick Motorsport Chevrolet. I mean, he's not had a fantastic year. He only really won one of the stages at Daytona, and that was it.
Yeah, Chase Elliott, he's struggling a little bit. Chase Elliott is, used to be one of the big rising stars. I think, he's done very well. He's won a few races, but he's struggled to on form a little bit this year, as you said. So he needs a good race as well. And there'll be many drivers that are a little bit off form and want to get back into the flow of things.
Yeah, big weekend. Bloom Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500. That's next week. That'll be at Martinsville Raceway for that event. And Zach as well. Next weekend is the return, I believe, of Formula E. We're heading to the streets of Rome, and I believe DS Techeetah are going to have an updated power unit as well.
Yes. They now because of the rules, DS Techeetah decided not to introduce their new power unit at the first race, but they're going to do it this race because I believe those power units normally get updated every couple of seasons that need to update that battery. So DS Techeetah will bring a new car. Now, I have to say, as at Saudi Arabia, they were off the pace a little bit. Now, how well will they do with this new power unit? We don't know. As you know, it's interesting they're going to, Rome as well. Rome is going to be a very interesting track. It's got a new layout as well, Charlie, as well. It's also going to be a double header as well. It's going to be a race on the Saturday, a race on the Sunday. It's going to be like Saudi Arabia, where there's going to be two races. Thankfully, it doesn't clash with the Grand National on the Saturday, I have to say, which I'm delighted because that means I can watch Formula E and the Grand National later on. But yes, it's going to be. It's a 19 track, 19 corner circuit. It looks fairly like a fast turn 1 and 2, then into 3 is the first big corner, a 90-degree, and then a straight between turns 3 and 4, and less than 90 degree, and then a sweep to 5 into 6, and then 7. Just before turn 7 is the start line because there's a separate start and finish line. 7 and 8. That's going to be interesting, Charlie, because they're all going to have to get into that first turn 7. Interestingly, and then it's an 8 and then 9. So the last bit is narrower, and then you get into the loop as well. So you'll be passing stuff such as the Pizza del Nacional Unite, the Plaza Congresso. So yes, it's going to look like a very interesting circuit, Charlie.
A very tough track, Rome, isn't it? I think did Sebastian Buemi have a crash there a couple of years ago with Lucas Di Grassi, if I remember. They both got quite in the wars.
Yeah, somewhere like that. It might have been somewhere else, but you never know. But yes, I'm looking forward to it, Charlie, because it's been a while since the last race at the moment. So and in the driver's stand at the moment, currently it's Nick de Vries, who is the
De Vries is leading, I
leader.
believe. I'm just getting the standings up now.
Sam Bird and Robin Freitz.
Robin Freitz second. Eduardo Mortara's fourth. For Venturi, I believe. Da Costa is fifth.
Yeah. Fifth. Mitch Evans sixth. Oliver Brown seventh. Rennie Ras eighth. Sergio Sescana ninth. Pascal Wehrlein 10th. So looking at it at the moment, Charlie, the DS Cheetahs are not up there at the moment. Now, whether this new power unit is going to do anything will be interesting to see, or have the pack tightened up so much that we're going to be in open competition. We'll have to see, Charlie.
Yeah. Alex Lim will be back as well, racing, I'm sure, after that horror crash in Saudi Arabia.
Alex Lim is certainly going to be back racing because he's okay. He's fine. He no injuries. He will be back. And yeah, that he'll be back certainly as well. As well for that. But yeah, that's how it's all going to work. And I see as well. So the race will be at 3 on the Saturday, and interestingly, it's on 12 on the Sunday, a few hours earlier. Very interesting. It's from that early.
Yeah.
Yes. But yes, as I said, I look forward to watching it because it's the next double header. And I always like 2 races. I always like a double header weekend. You get more drama in a double header weekend. Looking forward to it.
Who do you think, Zach, what drivers and teams really need to improve heading into Rome?
Well, as I said, Charlie, I think, DS Cheetah. I'm very interested to see, how they do. Because, as you said, they got the upgraded battery as well. But the likes, so let's see. I want to see how Porsche, I think, looking at it as well, likes of BMW, Eurovision, Nissan, Edams, and Mercedes could do with a bit of improvement, and so maybe Audi as well.
What about the Jags?
But it's a very mixed thing at the moment. Jags, yes, definitely. Sam Bird's in second at the moment in standing, so he's doing quite well. And obviously Mitch Evans in sixth. And it feels like we've got a revitalised Jaguar racing team again, Charlie, which is good to see and is well needed. So that's somewhere where, Mitch Evans is one of them that could improve. But I think all eyes will be on the Cheetahs to see whether they got their upgraded power unit is performative enough that they actually go back to going to the front again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Vern and Da Costa are going to get on, because they're very massive rivalry at that team. So that will be next weekend, the Rome E-Prix live, I believe. That'll be on YouTube, but also I think live on Channel 4, Channel 5 as well.
BBC
for that
2,
event,
BBC 2, Charlie. Yeah, BBC 2 is on as well. Eurosport as well. That's not. It used to be on Channel 5. It's no longer on Channel 5.
No, it's no longer on there. Eurosport, I believe. But that'll be good. That'll be the Rome E-Prix, round 3 and 4 of the 2021 ABB Formula E Championship. But Zach, we're going to move on now. Before to finish this podcast off with, we're going to be chatting all about America now, and we've got more news from America. And I want to, just before I move on about President Biden, huge crash at the Capitol the other day. I hope the police officer is okay, who was injured in that. Has there been a statement from Biden on this issue?
Yeah, he released a statement. Unfortunately, Charlie, one police officer did die. Did die, unfortunately, in that security incident. The person got shot. I have to say, the person who did commit the crime got shot and was pronounced dead. The other police officer got released from hospital, thankfully, but there was one, I think, one of the other officers sadly died. So that's another Capitol Police officer within 4 months, I believe, dying near the US Capitol. It's quite frankly disgraceful that another incident's happened. But I have to say, thankfully, the security this time, Charlie, was much better. And whoever this person who did this attack timed this attack really badly, because they did this whilst Congress was in recess. So thankfully there's not much of them there. None of the really main staff were there, but I can't imagine how much worse it would have been if it
was the horrible events of the January 6th are back again.
Yeah, it brings you back that mind again, unfortunately, Charlie, and that's the last thing people want.
No, I remember the 6th of Jan. It was horrible. I watched the insurrection of the Capitol. And it was just, I've never seen it before in US history. But on that subject, Zach, as well, with what happened as well in the States last week, the trial of Derek Chauvin was on last week, who sadly murdered George Floyd last year. And of course, we caused the Black Lives Matter protest. What do you make out from that trial over the last week?
Yes, I've watched that very closely, Charlie. I've literally watched most of the trial, and I will be when it continues tomorrow. The prosecution are making a very powerful case, Charlie. We've seen this week the witnesses included one of the staff of the Minneapolis police, who said that Derek Chauvin's use of the knee was inappropriate and unnecessary. The defense team arguing in their opening statement that George Floyd was on drugs and therefore he died because of the drugs, not because of the knee. I have to say, Charlie, I think the defense is getting absolutely battered on this. The prosecution are doing really well. You've seen never before evidence. I watched some of the CCTV cameras and some of the footage that's just come out from the court. And you have to say it's shocking.
It's horrifying, some of it, isn't it?
It's horrifying. It's awful to watch. And I don't think George Floyd posed that really much of harm. And yes, I mean, he was high in parts. He did look he wasn't drunk, but it doesn't look like from one of the indoor where he went to the shop and handed that counterfeit $20 note. He didn't actually cause any physical harm to people. I can now, if there was a physical harm done, then I could understand the defense case. This is where it kind of turns on its case, where if it did happen, but it didn't, and it just feels to me, Charlie, so unnecessary. I mean, we've now learned, Charlie, that the kneeling time was 9:46 rather than 8 minutes 46. So it went on immediately longer than what we expected, what we learned. And honestly, Charlie, it's unbelievable. My hope for those poor people in Minneapolis and that Floyd family, and my hope, is a full-on prosecution and guilty of all three charges. Now, there is a jury. This is the jury trial, Charlie, which means that if any jury, a number of jurors decide to dissent a certain way, that means we could have a hung jury, and he could be Derek Chauvin could be let off free. And I cannot imagine, Charlie, if there's a hung jury or a not guilty verdict, that can you imagine the potential riots that are going to happen in that city? There's going to be a lot of tension over these next few weeks for Minneapolis.
It's going to get interesting, yeah. I mean, Zach, as well, I honestly think he should be in prison for it. I'm not joking. What he committed last year was clearly manslaughter. It was clear manslaughter. He was charged last week of third-degree manslaughter, was Derek Chauvin. He should be, in my opinion, what he done, broke the law, didn't he? And I think it depends what the court vote for him. It depends what the jury's going to say. But I think it well could be that he could be potentially in big, big trouble.
Yeah. The thing is about it, Charlie, is that he's on manslaughter charges. He's also been tried for third-degree murder charges as well. And potentially, I think, second-degree murder. And, I think the residents of Minneapolis and all those supporting the Floyd family and their prosecution will want nothing other than a guilty charge in all three of them, including third-degree murder. So, that's what they want to see. And I don't think they want anything else other than that. There will be big problems potentially if there's anything other than murder, or if there's a hung jury, or if there's a not guilty verdict. Can you imagine how there'll be a lot of questions about the criminal justice system if that's the case, or the members of the jury on that team if they choose otherwise? I cannot imagine the reaction, because even my own eyes. I mean, we're not legal analysts, but even my own eyes, I thought, that was a murder. That was not a manslaughter to me. That was a murder. That's how I view it. And I think
was
definitely
definitely
that they deserve less than that.
Totally agree. I think he was a murder without a doubt. He kneeled on him, choked him to death. I was just watching that scene last year. I'm not going to be rude in saying this here, but you see these sports fans taking the knee. When I look at this, I'm like, God, that happened to George Floyd. It looks horrible.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously the knee is a divisive opinion in itself. But it came off of the knee of the police officer saying that, you know, the knee is a symbolic symbol. Not as, you know, we want to murder this man, you know, but it feels like what it feels like on black people personally, you know, what black people feel like, what happens to them. So it's a symbolic gesture to them when they do that at sports event. It still happens today as well, Charlie.
I know, Formula One.
Since that murder. And people, drivers, you know, sports people across the world are still taking that knee. So that's, you know, that's where we are at the moment.
It's very interesting, Zach, this issue of taking the knee. It's going to be one thing that's going to be done for a long time, I'm sure. What's your opinion, guys? Please, if you what your opinion is, if you think taking a knee is acceptable and it's a symbol of supporting ending racism, please let me know down in the comments below. But we're going to finish off now, Zach, with the final thing from America now, not on Derek Chauvin, but on a week in politics, which saw once again Donald Trump on a podcast with Lara Trump, who is, by the way, now on Fox News. She's now been signed up as an analyst. Zach, what did you make of Trump's interview with Lara on her podcast?
I must admit, I didn't watch the podcast, but I did see the news of him. I did see the news of Laura Trump becoming the Fox News contributor. We frankly knew that the Fox News had become a Trump channel in some ways, in another. Donald Trump has certainly not been silent this week. Let's just say that. He's advocated for a boycott of Major League Baseball because the Major League Baseball announced this week that they removed their All-Star game out of Atlanta, Georgia, following a bill that was passed from the Georgia state legislature signed by Brian Kemp, who's a Republican governor there, that would suppress the right to vote and require further ID measures. You couldn't even give water in line to people. It reduces to drop boxes, hands power over to the Georgia state legislator, and removes the Secretary of State as an official voting election board member. So yeah, it's all full of voter suppression, Charlie, blatant voter suppression. The likes of Coca-Cola, Delta, are all speaking out about it, and because Donald and Brian Kemp has certainly called these companies cancel culture wokies. It makes me think what the Republican Party actually stand for these days, other than silly sound bites and stupidity. That's what my
It's been a lot on Fox News, hasn't it, Zach? Tucker was talking about this the other day about Coca-Cola.
Tucker Carlson. It'll be interesting because I know Piers Morgan will be on his show tomorrow, talking about revealing all. Very interesting to see. Quite frankly, I couldn't give a tooth about Tucker Carlson. He's just a maniac at the end of the day, in my opinion.
We saw some news last week, Zach, from a reporter from CNN. Actually called him the
as I said, I haven't watched listened to the Trump audio, Laura Trump family loving podcast. I haven't listened to that. I have other time for other things, unfortunately. It's just, it's Trump trying to make it all about himself. I saw his statements earlier today. He put out these statements saying Happy Easter, including from the radical left who wants to engage in cancel culture and all that. It's not the typical Happy Easter you normally sing to people, which is just strange. But cancel culture has been done by Donald Trump, who's trying to cancel the MLB for apparently engaging cancel culture. They're being cancelled themselves. So it's just ridiculous lunacy from Trump and that sort of thing.
It's clear that we've got a divide. We've got it's clear that the two sides of the equation with the US media on a lot of issues, including the current president Joe Biden over mask mandates in some states. As well. And Zach, one final question now before we wrap this up. I just want to touch on Brazil quickly before we finish this off. Jair Bolsonaro has fired 3 health ministers, and he's also got rid of more of his cabinet. Is he in trouble?
Is he in trouble? Well, he already was. I mean, Brazil was smashing COVID records now. In terms of cases, deaths,
4,000 nearly recorded.
Quite frankly, wow. Yeah. Jair Bolsonaro is the type of person that would view a graveyard and smile over it, for all the wrong reasons. He's like a ghost. He's like the male version of the Wicked Witch, basically. That's how that's Jair Bolsonaro. He's a loon in its own right, but that's the result.
He did have an interview last year, didn't he, with Trump? If I remember.
Yeah, it might have been a meet and greet, loving rather than anything serious. They're probably discussing hydroxychloroquine or something like that.
No,
I
mean, Zach, as well. Like, is the P1 variant a threat to the world? Because it was on the news earlier on. Is it a threat to the US and to the rest of the world? Maybe.
Well, it's certainly a threat, no matter where you are, even with closed borders these days. I mean, it's Jair Bolsonaro has killed enough of his population just to kill even more of it, because the more people you infect, the more likely you get a variant out of it. And Jair Bolsonaro has suddenly decided to put the magic ingredients together, kill half his population, and then decide to use superpower to kill even more of the population. He may be a good guy in poison, but in humanity, it's like war there, Charlie. In terms of what's happening. That's how you can describe it.
You'd rather want to be in the US, I think, certainly, compared to the Brazil, given the difference. I mean, to be honest with you, Zach, as well, I think looking at like borders, I think the US have got much more stronger border controls than Brazil have. And I think when you compare the two, Brazil at the moment in big trouble, whilst the US is much further ahead on their vaccine rollout.
The
Brazil
UK
is still
and US are doing better.
Brazil is still far behind, aren't
they? Well, what do you expect when their own prime minister tells people not to take a spray vaccine rather than a needle vaccine? What else do you expect? No wonder why they're so far behind, quite frankly. It's a big screw you to the people, really. In other words,
sounds like Charles Walker might visit him, maybe, given what he said the other week.
No, they'll embrace each other, hand in hand, hugging each other. That's how embracing they'll probably be.
Yeah, I'm sure both of them will be. So that is all we got time for today on the Globetrotter Newscast. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast tonight. And please, everyone, as well, just before we go, I've just thought of something. Tomorrow, announcement on the step 2 of lockdown easing as well. I just forgot to mention that. We believe will be an announcement tomorrow from the Prime Minister on step 2. Zach, what do you make of that? Very likely now?
So the Prime Minister looks like he's going to announce and the second step 2 is going to go ahead next week. I suppose that's good news. Our punters are going to get ready for outdoor pubs now, which I suppose they're all going to be happy about.
Yep, I'm sure the punters will be around, and I'm certainly going to be one of them, hopefully, in the coming months.
That's interesting, Charlie. That's very interesting.
Shows you when you're 18.
Yeah, I can kind of imagine you in the pub now these days. I can imagine you could be the sort of person that goes in the pub.
Maybe
I'm not that type of person, fortunately, but there we go.
Yeah,
very engaging.
The Nigel Farage's comment on vaccine passports, I'm sure that'll be dealt with at the pub very soon.
They're not going to be used in pubs and bars anymore, Charlie. Anyway, that's been scrapped as far as I understand it. So relief for pubs and bars and the hospitality unit in that section.
Yeah, relief for all of them. That is all we've got time for tonight on the Globetrotter Newscast. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll be back again next time for another episode. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Take care, everyone, and see you later. Goodbye.